A 25-year-old law school graduate stood before television cameras on a sweltering Georgia morning, his face a mask of concerned neighborly worry as he spoke about his missing classmate. Stephen Mark McDaniel had used a master key to gain access to Lauren Giddings' apartment at 4:30 a.m. on June 26, 2011. Strangled her with his hands while she slept, then dismembered her body with a hacksaw the following day. What the news reporter didn't know was that she was interviewing the killer himself.
Person that was living there?
Yeah, Lauren was my neighbor. We're just trying to find out where she is at this point. I mean, no one has seen her since Saturday. I mean, the last time anyone heard from her was an email that she sent out. And we don't know where she is. I mean, the only thing we can think is that maybe she went out running and someone snatched her.
Like the parking lot area, I know they've been doing a lot of, I think that's where they have recovered the body or whatever they recovered from there.
Body?
And the chilling moment when McDaniel learned on live television that police had found his victim's body would become one of the most disturbing pieces of evidence in modern criminal history.
Are you okay, sir?
I think I need to sit down.
Okay.
But to understand the true tragedy of what was lost that terrible morning, we must first understand who Lauren Teresa Giddings really was. Born on April 18, 1984, in Tacoma Park, Maryland, Lauren grew up in the close-knit community of Laurel, Maryland, where she would become the pride and joy of her family and everyone who knew her. The story of Lauren Giddings begins not with her death, but with the extraordinary promise of a life dedicated to justice and service to others. Lauren was the eldest daughter of William, Bill, and Karen Giddings, hardworking parents who had not had the opportunity to attend college themselves, but invested all their hopes and dreams in their 3 daughters. As the firstborn, Lauren naturally assumed the role of protector, mentor, and trailblazer for her younger sisters, Sarah Giddings and Caitlin Wheeler. The family's bond was unbreakable. They were more than relatives. They were best friends, confidants, and each other's biggest supporters. Growing up in Maryland, Lauren was deeply rooted in her faith community as a member of St. Mary's Catholic Church, where she developed the strong moral compass that would guide her throughout her life. Her daily church attendance wasn't just routine, but reflected her genuine spiritual commitment and desire to serve others. The values instilled in her through her faith would later manifest in her choice to pursue public defense work, dedicating her career to helping those who needed it most. Lauren's childhood was marked by an extraordinary combination of academic excellence, athletic achievement, and genuine kindness that would define her entire life. As her mother Karen would later reflect, her junior year of school, she was taking AP classes, she was working, she was volunteering, playing a sport, and was part of the dance club. I've been thinking of that too. It makes me believe in God's design for her. Even as a teenager, Lauren displayed the remarkable ability to excel in multiple areas while maintaining the warmth and compassion that drew people to her. The Giddings household was filled with love, laughter, and the kind of close family bonds that many families only dream of achieving. Family gatherings were filled with intellectual discussions, shared achievements, and the easy affection that comes from people who truly like each other as individuals, not just love each other as family members. Lauren served as the family's unofficial coordinator, always making sure everyone stayed connected and celebrating each other's achievements. One of Lauren's greatest joys during her law school years was her beloved dog, Butterbean, a loyal companion who brought immeasurable happiness to her life. Butterbean wasn't just a pet, but a genuine family member who accompanied Lauren through her college years and into law school. The bond between Lauren and Butterbean was extraordinary. Friends and family often remarked on how devoted they were to each other. Lauren would spend hours walking and playing with Butterbean, finding in her furry companion a source of comfort during stressful periods of academic work. Butterbean's presence in Lauren's life revealed another dimension of her caring personality. Even during the most demanding periods of law school, Lauren never failed to prioritize her dog's needs and well-being. Friends would often find Lauren studying with Butterbean curled up nearby, the dog seeming to sense when Lauren needed extra comfort during particularly challenging academic periods. After Butterbean's eventual passing years later, Lauren's family would post on her memorial Facebook page, "Very sad to say that Lauren's beloved dog, Butterbean, has passed away." The fact that the family maintained such detailed memories of Lauren's relationship with her dog, even years after Lauren's death, speaks to how central Butterbean was to Lauren's happiness. Lauren's academic journey began with exceptional performance in high school, where she distinguished herself through her involvement in AP classes, volunteer work, athletics, and dance club. Her well-rounded achievements demonstrated her ability to excel in diverse areas while maintaining her academic focus and her natural warmth with everyone around her. After graduating from high school, Lauren made the decision to attend Agnes Scott College, a prestigious women's liberal arts college in Decatur, Georgia. This choice reflected both her academic ambitions and her appreciation for an environment that would challenge her intellectually while supporting her development as a leader. Agnes Scott's reputation for producing strong, independent women who make significant contributions to their communities aligned perfectly with Lauren's personal values and career aspirations. During her undergraduate years at Agnes Scott, Lauren flourished in the college's intellectually rigorous environment. The college's emphasis on developing critical thinking skills, ethical reasoning, and social responsibility resonated deeply with Lauren's personal mission to use her talents in service of others. Her professors remembered her as an engaged, thoughtful student who asked challenging questions and demonstrated genuine intellectual curiosity about complex social and legal issues. It was during her time at Agnes Scott that Lauren began seriously considering a career in law, specifically focusing on public defense work. Unlike many of her peers who were drawn to law by the promise of financial success, Lauren was motivated by a desire to ensure that everyone, regardless of their economic circumstances, had access to quality legal representation. This calling reflected the values instilled in her by her family and her faith community, a commitment to justice and service to those who needed it most. Following her graduation from Agnes Scott College, Lauren made the decision to attend Mercer University's Walter F. George School of Law in Macon, Georgia. The proximity to her undergraduate alma mater made the transition easier, but more importantly, Mercer's reputation for producing attorneys committed to public service aligned perfectly with Lauren's career goals. During her 3 years at Mercer Law School, Lauren distinguished herself not just academically, but as a leader and advocate within the law school community. She served as president of the Federalist Society, demonstrating her intellectual engagement with constitutional law and conservative legal principles. Her involvement with the Association of Women Law Students showed her commitment to supporting her female colleagues and advocating for gender equality in the legal profession. Perhaps most tellingly, her volunteer work with the Habeas Project, which provides legal assistance to death row inmates, revealed the depth of her commitment to ensuring justice for all, even those society had abandoned. This work was emotionally demanding and intellectually challenging, requiring her to confront the most serious aspects of the criminal justice system while maintaining her belief in the fundamental dignity of every human being. Lauren's friends at law school affectionately called her Elle Woods, referencing the beloved character from Legally Blonde, who combined intelligence, determination, and an infectious positive attitude. Like Elwood's, Lauren brought warmth and enthusiasm to the often intense world of law school, maintaining her sunny disposition even during the most stressful periods of exams and clinical work. She was infectious, her classmate and friend Ashley Muller said, describing how Lauren's positive energy seemed to lift everyone around her. As Lauren progressed through law school, her personal relationships became an important part of her life story. She had meaningful romantic relationships with two men, Joe, with whom she maintained a friendly relationship even after their romance ended, and David, an older man with whom she was developing deeper feelings. Both relationships reflected Lauren's emotional maturity and her ability to maintain positive connections with people who had been important in her life. David, in particular, had captured Lauren's interest as someone who shared her intellectual curiosity and professional ambitions. Their relationship was built on mutual respect and shared conversations about legal issues, social justice, and their future careers. The fact that Lauren could maintain friendship with her ex-boyfriend Joe while exploring new feelings with David demonstrated her emotional intelligence and capacity for healthy relationships. However, Lauren's romantic life took a complex turn as graduation approached and she prepared for the intensive process of studying for the Georgia bar exam. The practical demands of her career preparation and the stress of this crucial period in her professional development began to affect her personal relationships. In her final email to David, sent on the evening of June 25, 2011, Lauren mentioned an awkward conversation with a friend who had been asking uncomfortable questions about her relationship status. This email would later become crucial evidence in her murder case. Meanwhile, Lauren's relationship with her sisters remained the cornerstone of her emotional life. Sarah and Caitlin looked up to their older sister as both a role model and their greatest supporter. As the first in the family to attend college and law school, Lauren had not only achieved her own dreams, but had also opened doors for her siblings to follow in her footsteps. The sisters shared an exceptional bond that included regular communication and mutual support through all of life's challenges and celebrations. One of the most significant events in Lauren's final months was her sister Caitlin's wedding, which took place in the summer of 2011 in Maryland. The wedding was a joyous family celebration that brought together the entire Giddings clan to celebrate Caitlin's marriage and the continuing bonds that held their family together. For Lauren, the wedding represented not just her sister's happiness, but also a reminder of the love and support that surrounded her. Lauren threw herself into wedding preparations with the same enthusiasm and attention to detail that characterized everything she did. She served as both a practical helper and emotional anchor for the family during this significant time. The wedding weekend was filled with the kind of family memories that the Giddings family treasures to this day. Lauren was radiant during the celebration, her joy for her sister's happiness evident to everyone present. Family photos from the event show Lauren at her most beautiful and happy, surrounded by her parents, sisters, and extended family members who loved her dearly. After the wedding celebration, Lauren returned to Georgia with clear plans for her immediate future. According to Caitlin, Lauren had told her family that after taking time off for her sister's wedding, she would focus completely on studying for the bar exam. This decision reflected Lauren's disciplined approach to achieving her goals and her understanding of the intense preparation required to pass the bar and begin her legal career. The transition from the joy of Caitlin's wedding to the isolation of intensive studying proved to be a significant change for Lauren. After weeks of family celebration and social interaction, she was now spending long hours alone in her apartment, surrounded by bar exam materials and legal texts. She had settled into apartment 142 at the Barristers Hall complex on Georgia Avenue, directly across from the Mercer Law School campus. The apartment complex was popular with law students who appreciated the convenience and the community of fellow students who understood the demands of legal education. Lauren's apartment had been her home throughout law school and represented both her independence and her achievement in reaching this stage of her educational journey. She had decorated the space to reflect her personality, warm, welcoming, and organized to support her academic work. Lauren's daily routine during this period of bar exam preparation was structured around maximizing her study time while maintaining her physical and emotional well-being. She would rise early, spend hours reviewing legal concepts and practicing exam questions, take breaks for meals and exercise, and check in regularly with family and friends. Her consistent communication patterns made her subsequent silence all the more alarming when it began. What Lauren didn't know was that living in the neighboring apartment 143 was Stephen Mark McDaniel, a fellow Mercer Law graduate from the same class of 2011 who had developed a dangerous obsession with her. McDaniel had been living beside Lauren since fall 2008, meaning that for nearly 3 years, these two individuals had existed mere feet apart, separated only by a thin shared wall. Their lives could not have been more different in terms of purpose, character, and mental state. McDaniel, originally from suburban Atlanta and born in 1985, came from a middle-class family in Lilburn, Georgia. Unlike Lauren's warm and outgoing personality, McDaniel was awkward and struggled to form meaningful connections with his classmates. He was something of a social outcast who mostly kept to himself, preferring solitary activities to social interaction. During law school, he had appeared to be a typical student, though far less popular and charismatic than Lauren. What made McDaniel particularly unsettling was his obsession with weapons, particularly swords and knives. He collected various bladed weapons and spent considerable time researching their history and uses online. This fascination with instruments of violence should have been a red flag, but in the context of law school, where students often discussed criminal cases involving weapons, it may not have seemed as alarming to those who knew him casually. However, beneath his unremarkable exterior lurked much darker impulses that his classmates and neighbors never suspected. What they didn't know was that McDaniel had developed an intense fixation on Lauren that went far beyond normal attraction. He had repeatedly asked her out on dates, despite her polite but firm rejections. Lauren had explained that she wasn't interested in pursuing a romantic relationship with McDaniel, but he refused to accept her answer and continued his unwanted advances. When Lauren continued to decline his requests for dates, McDaniel's behavior escalated in deeply disturbing ways. He began stalking her social media accounts obsessively, studying her posts, photos, and interactions with others. McDaniel's search history was filled with hits for her social media and LinkedIn profiles, showing that his obsession extended beyond physical surveillance to cyber stalking. He had been systematically gathering information about Lauren's life, her friends, her activities, and her future plans through her online presence. More troubling still, McDaniel started watching her from his apartment window, spying on her as she came and went from her home. The proximity of their apartments gave him ample opportunity to monitor her daily routines without her knowledge. But McDaniel's voyeuristic behavior reached truly sinister levels when he created a makeshift surveillance device specifically designed to record Lauren without her consent. He attached a small camera to the end of a 6-foot wooden stick, allowing him to position it near her windows to film her inside her apartment. Using a video camera duct-taped to the end of this wooden pole, McDaniel would hold the contraption up high to peek inside Lauren's window from ground level. He would then watch and re-watch these recordings, feeding his obsession with increasingly invasive footage of Lauren's private moments. This homemade surveillance device represented a significant escalation from passive observation to active violation of her privacy and personal space. Investigators later discovered hundreds of videos that McDaniel had made of Lauren using his homemade surveillance contraption. These recordings documented the extent of his stalking behavior and provided a clear picture of his obsession with her. The videos showed Lauren in her private moments, completely unaware that she was being watched and filmed by her neighbor. This evidence would later prove crucial in establishing the premeditated nature of his crime. McDaniel's online activities revealed an even more disturbing pattern of behavior. His internet search history contained over 14,000 online searches related to violent pornography, murder, and dismemberment. He also maintained a personal blog where he wrote about his political views and, at times, his dark fantasies, revealing a deep-seated interest in violence that he carefully cultivated over time. Perhaps most chilling of all, a civil lawsuit filed by Lauren's parents would later reveal that McDaniel had been plotting a perfect murder since at least 2007, telling a college roommate that he would dismember a body and scatter the parts to avoid getting caught. This revelation showed that Lauren's murder was not a sudden act of passion, but the fulfillment of a long-held, premeditated fantasy that McDaniel had been nurturing for years. As Lauren settled into her intensive bar exam preparation routine in the summer of 2011, she began to sense that something was wrong. Suspecting that someone had been watching her, Lauren sent an email to David expressing that she believed someone had tried to break into her apartment. This prescient warning would prove tragically prophetic, suggesting that Lauren had sensed the danger that was closing in around her. Lauren was security conscious and had developed an uncomfortable gut feeling about her safety. She confided in friends that she felt like she was being watched, describing an eerie sensation that someone was monitoring her movements and activities. Her friends later recalled how she had mentioned these concerns, though none of them realized at the time just how accurate her instincts were, or how much danger she was actually in. The weekend of June 24-26, 2011 began normally enough for Lauren. On Friday evening, June 24th, she has gone out to a local bar with friends to have drinks and socialize, enjoying what should have been a carefree summer evening. She spent time that night with Joe, her ex-boyfriend, staying at his house as they maintained their friendship despite the end of their romantic relationship. The next day, Saturday, June 25th, Lauren left Joe's house to spend the day at a country club, engaging in the kind of social and recreational activities she enjoyed. That evening, Lauren sent her final email to David, mentioning an awkward conversation with a friend who had been asking uncomfortable questions about her personal life. What she didn't realize was that this friend was likely McDaniel, who had been prying into her relationships and gathering information to feed his obsession. This would be Lauren's last communication with the outside world. In the early hours of June 26, 2011, at approximately 4:30 a.m., Stephen McDaniel put his long-planned fantasy into action. Using a master key that he had obtained through theft or copying, he quietly entered Lauren's apartment while she slept. Wearing a mask and gloves to avoid leaving evidence, he made his way to her bedroom where she lay sleeping and defenseless. When Lauren stirred and awakened to find an intruder in her bedroom, she recognized McDaniel despite his mask. "Stephen, please stop," she reportedly said, according to McDaniel's later confession to authorities. These words, spoken in her final moments, would haunt investigators and her family. A young woman who, even in her terror, tried to appeal to whatever humanity might remain in someone she had known as a neighbor and classmate. McDaniel strangled Lauren to death with his bare hands, ending the life of a promising young woman who had dedicated herself to justice and service to others. The attack was swift and brutal, giving Lauren no opportunity to defend herself or call for help. McDaniel's use of a master key demonstrated the premeditated nature of his crime, This was not a spontaneous act of violence, but the calculated execution of a plan he had been developing for years. What followed was even more horrifying and demonstrated the depth of McDaniel's depravity. After killing Lauren, he dismembered her body in her own bathroom, using a hacksaw he had purchased specifically for this purpose. He methodically cut apart her remains, showing a level of detachment and planning that indicated this was the fulfillment of his long-held fantasy of committing the perfect murder. The dismemberment process took place the day after the murder, with McDaniel working methodically to dispose of evidence and cover up his crime. He wrapped Lauren's torso in plastic bags and disposed of it in a dumpster behind the apartment complex. Other parts of her body were scattered in various locations around Macon and potentially in Pike County, where investigators believe McDaniel may have surveyed locations near his grandfather's property weeks before committing the murder. For 3 days, McDaniel maintained a facade of normalcy, while Lauren's absence went initially unnoticed by most people in her life. By June 27, 2011, however, her family and friends noticed her silence. At first, they assumed she was simply immersed in studying, just as she had said she would be after returning from Caitlin's wedding. But as days passed with no word from her, unease began to grow among those who knew Lauren's reliable communication patterns. On June 29th, Lauren's family and friends, particularly her sisters Sarah and Caitlin, became seriously alarmed when Lauren seemed to drop off the face of the earth. When Lauren failed to appear for planned activities and couldn't be reached by phone or text message, those who knew her immediately recognized that something was terribly wrong. Her sisters, with whom she maintained regular contact, developed a really bad feeling when Lauren stopped responding to their attempts to communicate with her. Lauren's friend, Ashley, who had a spare key to her apartment, decided to check on her personally when she couldn't reach her. Ashley and her boyfriend went to Lauren's apartment to investigate, and what they found only deepened their concerns. While Lauren was nowhere to be found, all of her personal belongings were still in the apartment: her purse with her money, her identification, her bag, and other items that she would never have left behind if she had gone somewhere voluntarily. Ashley later described having an overwhelming, sinking gut feeling that something was really wrong. The family contacted the Macon police, initiating what would become one of the most disturbing murder investigations in Georgia's recent history. The initial missing person investigation was led by Steve Gatlin from the Macon police. As police began canvassing the apartment complex and interviewing residents, they naturally turned to Lauren's neighbors for information about when she was last seen and whether anyone had noticed anything unusual.
This is where Stephen McDaniel made what would prove to be a fatal error in judgment. Rather than keeping a low profile, he actively inserted himself into the investigation, presenting himself as a concerned neighbor and classmate who wanted to help find Lauren.
The day after Lauren Giddings was reported missing in June of 2011. Reporter Michelle Casada found him standing outside the apartment building where he and Giddings had lived, and that we now know was the scene of the crime.
Among the local students who offered to help search for Lauren was McDaniel himself, who appeared concerned like everyone else in the community. His eagerness to be involved struck investigators as suspicious, but what really caught their attention was his decision to grant multiple interviews to local television news stations.
Giddings' body had been recovered by police from the dumpster where he had put it. Knowing now that McDaniel had murdered and dismembered Giddings, the interview provides a glimpse inside the mind of a killer as he builds his story and his alibi.
As media crews set up around the apartment complex and began interviewing residents, McDaniel made himself available to speak with reporters, seemingly eager to share his thoughts about Lauren's disappearance. The television interviews McDaniel gave would become legendary in criminal justice circles for their sheer audacity and the revealing glimpse they provided into the mind of a killer trying to maintain his facade of innocence.
Person that was living there?
Yeah, Lauren was my neighbor. We're just trying to find out where she is at this point. No one has seen her since Saturday. I mean, the last time anyone heard from her was an email that she sent out.
During his television appearances, McDaniel came across as nervous, which could initially be attributed to the stress of being on camera during a tragic situation. However, careful observers later noted that throughout his interviews, McDaniel consistently referred to Lauren in the past tense, a linguistic slip that many criminal psychologists consider a telling sign that the speaker knows the person is no longer alive. The most damning and famous moment came when McDaniel was speaking to a reporter about the ongoing search for Lauren. The journalist received updated information through her earpiece and then delivered what she thought was breaking news to McDaniel and the viewing audience. She announced that police had found a body. McDaniel's reaction was instantaneous and utterly incriminating. His face went completely white, and he appeared to nearly collapse, telling the reporter that he needed to go sit down immediately.
What about in the parking lot area? I know they've been doing a lot of, I think that's where they have recovered the body or whatever they recovered from there.
Body?
Had you seen anything there? Are you okay, sir?
I think I need to sit down.
Okay.
For someone who was supposed to be simply a concerned neighbor, his reaction was far too extreme and specific. A truly innocent person might have been shocked and saddened by news of a body being found, but McDaniel's response suggested he knew exactly whose body had been discovered and what it meant for him personally. This television interview provided investigators with crucial evidence of McDaniel's consciousness of guilt. His extreme reaction to learning about the discovery of remains could not be explained by normal neighborly concern and immediately elevated him to the top of the suspect list. The breakthrough in the case had come on July 1, 2011, when the smell of decomposition led investigators to a dumpster behind the apartment complex. In what would prove to be a crucial stroke of investigative luck, police arrived at the scene just minutes before the trash collector was scheduled to pick up the garbage. According to detectives, if the trash had been collected, they would likely have continued working a missing persons case instead of a murder investigation. This element of pure chance played a crucial role in solving the case and bringing McDaniel to justice. Lauren's torso was discovered wrapped in plastic bags in the dumpster, confirming that they were dealing with a brutal homicide and dismemberment. The discovery immediately transformed the missing person case into a homicide investigation, bringing in additional resources and specialized investigators. As the investigation intensified, police obtained search warrants for both Lauren's apartment and McDaniel's neighboring unit. Inside Lauren's apartment, they discovered the chilling email she had sent to David expressing her fears that somebody had been trying to break into her apartment. Using luminol detectives found that her bathtub had been full of blood, confirming their worst suspicions about what had happened in that bathroom. Even more chilling was the discovery of a hacksaw with blood still on it in the communal laundry room of the apartment complex. The killer had apparently attempted to wash the blood off the saw, but had done a hasty job, leaving behind traces that would prove crucial to the investigation. The search of McDaniel's apartment revealed a treasure trove of incriminating evidence. Most shocking was the discovery of Lauren's underwear in McDaniel's dresser, providing direct physical evidence linking him to her and to the crime. Even more incriminating was the key they found that fit Lauren's apartment lock, concrete proof that he had gained unauthorized access to her home. Investigators also discovered the packaging for the very same hacksaw that had been found bloody in the laundry room, establishing a clear connection between McDaniel and the tool used to dismember Lauren's body. Perhaps most disturbing were the hundreds of videos that police found in McDaniel's possession, recordings he had made of Lauren using his homemade surveillance contraption.
On June 30, 2011, McDaniel consented to a search of his apartment by cadaver dogs trained to detect the scent of human remains. The cadaver dogs detected the scent of human remains in both the bedroom and bathroom of McDaniel's apartment, as well as in Lauren's apartment. This evidence was particularly damaging because it placed the scent of death in McDaniel's own living space, directly connecting him to Lauren's murder, and suggesting that parts of her body had been in his apartment during the dismemberment process. The forensic evidence continued to mount against McDaniel. Investigators discovered that he had recently purchased materials that could be used for cleaning up after a violent act. More tellingly, they found evidence that McDaniel had stolen condoms from a nearby store. Condoms that were described as the same size and brand and everything as evidence found at the crime scene. This seemingly minor piece of evidence provided a direct link between McDaniel and the crime scene. As investigators delved deeper into McDaniel's background, they uncovered evidence of his escalating criminal behavior. Stephen was described as a peeping Tom turned murderer, and the investigation revealed that he had stalked and been obsessed with Lauren for an extended period before he brutally murdered her while she slept in her own bed. David and Joe, the men with whom Lauren had been romantically involved, were quickly cleared of any involvement in the murder. Both men provided complete accounts of their interactions with Lauren and had solid alibis for the time period when she disappeared. This cleared the way for investigators to focus entirely on McDaniel, whose suspicious behavior, the mounting evidence against him, made him the clear perpetrator. On August 2, 2011, Stephen McDaniel was charged with first-degree murder.
There's blood in your apartment, Stephen. That's right. There's blood in your apartment. Stephen, this is hard, buddy. I know this is hard. And I can tell it's on you. You want to let it go. There's blood in your apartment, Stephen. You didn't get it all up. It didn't all come off. You scrubbed and you wiped. But we can tell that. Don't you wipe CSI? Yeah, we know it. Stephen, why is there blood in your bathroom?
I don't know.
Yes, you do know. Why, Stephen?
The formal charges came after weeks of investigation that had systematically built an airtight case against him. The combination of physical evidence, his suspicious behavior, the damning television interviews, and the forensic evidence from both apartments left no doubt about his guilt.
Then how is it that you can tell me that you didn't clean up your apartment last weekend? A minute ago you couldn't remember.
I don't remember cleaning last weekend.
So it isn't that you didn't, it's that you just don't remember.
Initially, McDaniel maintained his innocence, pleading not guilty to the charges. However, as the evidence continued to mount and his legal team explained the strength of the prosecution's case, reality began to set in. The death penalty implications of the case likely influenced his decision to eventually change his plea. Georgia is a death penalty state, and the brutal, premeditated nature of Lauren's murder, combined with the dismemberment of her body, certainly qualified as capital murder. In 2014, McDaniel pleaded guilty and was sentenced to life in prison with the chance of parole in 2041. Macon-Bibb District Attorney David Cook said McDaniel admitted choking Giddings as part of his confession. This admission finally provided Lauren's family with confirmation of how their daughter and sister had died, though it could hardly bring them comfort or closure. The sentencing provided some measure of justice for Lauren's family, though nothing could restore the brilliant young life that had been cut short. However, McDaniel's legal troubles were far from over. Nearly 4 years after admitting he killed and dismembered his neighbor, McDaniel filed an appeal in 2018, claiming he didn't receive a fair trial. In 2022, he filed another appeal, this time in federal court. These ongoing legal maneuvers have kept the case in the legal system and prolonged the family's ordeal. Meanwhile, Lauren's family has never given up hope of finding the rest of her remains. The family of Lauren Giddings launched a new search for her remains in 2025, focusing on areas near where McDaniel's family lived. The search, about 60 miles west of Macon, was described as a long shot at best, but it reflects the family's determination to bring Lauren home completely and provide her with the dignified burial she deserves.
Ongoing search efforts highlight one of the most cruel aspects of McDaniel's crime: his refusal to reveal where he disposed of all of Lauren's remains. Even after pleading guilty, he has not provided complete information about what he did with her body, leaving her family without full closure and continuing their anguish more than a decade after her death. The Lauren Giddings case has had a lasting impact on multiple levels. For the Mercer University Law School community, it shattered assumptions about safety and trust among classmates. The case also highlighted the importance of trusting one's instincts about personal safety. Lauren's email expressing concern about someone trying to break into her apartment showed that she sensed danger, but tragically, her precautions were insufficient. From a criminal justice perspective, the McDaniel case became a textbook example of how suspects can incriminate themselves through their own actions and statements. His decision to give multiple television interviews, particularly his dramatic reaction upon learning that Lauren's body had been found, provided prosecutors with powerful evidence of his guilt. The case returned to the public spotlight when Dateline NBC re-aired The Watcher, bringing renewed attention to Lauren's story. These media presentations serve to keep Lauren's memory alive while also educating the public about the warning signs of predatory behavior and the importance of community vigilance. Today, Stephen McDaniel remains incarcerated in the Georgia prison system, serving his life sentence with the possibility of parole in 2041. Meanwhile, Lauren's family continues their efforts to locate her remaining remains, refusing to give up hope that someday they will be able to lay her to rest completely. The Lauren Giddings case stands as a stark reminder that evil can lurk behind the most ordinary facades, that intuitions about personal safety should be taken seriously, and that the pursuit of justice sometimes requires decades of persistence from both law enforcement and victims' families. Lauren's legacy lives on not only in the memory of those who knew and loved her, but also in the lessons her case has taught about recognizing danger and never giving up the search for truth and justice. In the end, Lauren Teresa Giddings will be remembered not as a victim, but as a bright, ambitious young woman whose life was cut tragically short just as she was beginning to make her mark on the world. Her story serves as both a tribute to her unlimited potential and a warning about the predators who walk among us, hiding their violent intentions behind masks of normalcy until they strike without warning, destroying not just their victims, but entire families and communities in the process.